What's going on, boys? Today we're talking FE and mutual elevation, one of my favorite aspects of the function. To begin, one of the common misconceptions about FE is thinking FE is about maintaining group harmony at all times, caring about other people over yourself or over your values, whatever. That is not the case. Rather, FE is an acute awareness of the group's mood, other people's vibes, and what will or won't ruin that mood. What someone does with that information is completely dependent on them. The individual, I mean. And it seems like the higher FE is, the closer that individual can dance around the fire of ruining the mood without being controlled by the group's mood and without screwing things up. Right? When an ITP encounters conflicting group moods and a lot of pressure, there is a pressure either to quiet down and cower or to pull out two grenades and blow everyone up. Whereas an ENFJ or an ESFJ seems to operate smoother under that pressure. For me, as an INTP, whenever there is a bunch of conflict moods, there's a 5-second timer for me to do something, which is why I don't like conflict. Whereas the ENFJs I've spoken with, I haven't spoken with many ESFJs, unfortunately, they seem to have 15 minutes of time to figure out, one, what they need to do, and two, how they're going to do it, without caving, without doing anything knee-jerk reaction-y. Real life example, a dude walks up and starts threatening me, immediately I go into fight or flight because I don't know what to do. Someone walks up and starts threatening an ENFJ, they're still operating at a higher level of consciousness, and they have time to figure out what they need to do because they command FE better. Now, we bring up this aspect of FE, or we clear up that misconception, because it's important to know about the function, both from a knowledge perspective and a self-defense perspective, but also because it ties into mutual elevation, which we're getting into now. Now, when a bunch of FE types get together, barring ITPs, more often INTPs, but we'll get into that, we get into a rhythm. Stage 1, we're figuring each other out. What are you, who are you, and friend or foe. Now, friend or foe is the most important part of that process, because if we're all showing friend, and we're all FE types, who and what doesn't matter. It's shocking how quickly FE types from all different walks of life, who are all showing the let's be cool card, can get along. Once we've established we aren't going to hurt each other and we aren't going to fuck up the vibe, comes stage 2. Group theorizing. Normally the group is going to decide on an interest. And even if someone in the group's primary interest, maybe your primary interest, doesn't necessarily fit the group's, it doesn't matter, because the vibes are too good and these people are too good. You'll find a place to fit in, and they will help you find a place to fit in. What we do is start throwing sticks on a bonfire. Throwing our personal experiences, perspectives, ideas into one pile. Then, once the pile is big enough, we start chipping away at it, trying to get closer to one mutual, correct and useful theory about something. Meaning, together, we're going to figure out something we'll all benefit from. Then comes stage 3, ribbing / symbiotic perfecting. Right, so once we know what we all are, what we all want, and what we all have, we start pecking at each other. But it's not in a bad way, right? The whole reason we're doing this is to become more perfect together. To do that, we have to annihilate or constantly check parts of ourselves. What'll happen is we will reveal to each other parts of ourselves that do not fit the mutual theory, especially or if the thing we're revealing is pathetic. We don't like it. We reveal it to tear it apart ourselves and get rid of it, but other people jump in. You'll notice FE types are some of the hardest shit talkers in the world. At least once the vibes are right and we all know we aren't going to take it the wrong way. Some people can't do that. That's FI types. But we'll get to that. Then, finally, you have the apotheosis of the process. The grand and perfect vibe. The sublime rhythm. You develop what becomes almost a militia with a shared goal, a shared system of beliefs, and a vernacular. Another thing you'll notice is FE types are quick and almost unconscious to adapt each other's vocabularies, and a system by which you can confess your sins and be absolved by shit-talking in service to each other because we care about each other and to our mutual goal. I've been thinking about the cult of Black Phillip again, and what they had is what I'm talking about. Patrice, ENTP. Dante, INFJ. Lord Master Gurion, ENFJ. Completely different people vibing, yet together moving toward the same end goal. Building into the same shared theory from different lenses, benefiting from those different lenses. This is one of the reasons I like INFJs. You find ones who are interested in people, and being good at people and being interested in people are two completely different things, and you can get a lot of work done in the world and in yourselves. And because I just have to, INFJ males, there is a winner class and a loser class. Stick to the winner male INFJs. Female INFJs, in my experience, not so much, or it's more of a scale. This isn't always the case, but in my experience, their winner or loser status is going to depend on the people they're around. Now, here is a real-world example of this FE mutual elevation process working, and how an FI type, any FI type, will immediately fuck it up. So this ISTP guy and I started talking, and it turned out to be still the only instance of a good mutual thing with an ISTP that doesn't fizzle out instantly. I don't know what it is, but with ISTPs, in my experience, we will cross paths, speak for 6 hours, and get into that rhythm and get something done, and then never ever speak again. I don't know why that happens. This is still the only time that didn't happen. Right, so this is a younger ISTP dude, sharp as a knife, can stick me in ways I'm never expecting, and ways that hurt. In a good way, because we're hurting each other to figure something out. In this instance, a mixture of typology and feeling aimless in the world. Now, the rhythm we developed was I present a theory, he stabs it a few times, I shove him and interrogate him holding a knife to figure out what he means. If his reasoning doesn't hold water, then I stab him, and if it does hold water, then I adjust my reasoning and the process repeats. And it had a silly man, straight man vibe. And between us, it was fine, even though on the outside it looked brutal, because we were on the same side trying to figure out the same things. Then an ENFP shoves his nose right up my ass and starts insulting and berating ISTP dude because he thinks ISTP is disrespecting me. And I step in and stop it immediately, at which point ENFP says he was just joking, clearly wasn't, thinks he's fooling people. I fucking hate FI types sometimes, but the damage is done by that point. I don't know enough about ISTPs to know what was going on in ISTP dude's head, but he was hurt. Then ENFP dude fucks off because when does an FI type ever feel responsible for their actions, especially emotional actions? And the rhythm ISTP dude and I had is now ruined. Now, I'm of the mind moments like those are reparable, but not everyone feels that way, and who can blame them? Getting pounced on like that never feels good. And ISTP dude does the respectful fade out, which is just painful to watch. One person with the wrong vibes has the ability to walk in and ruin the rhythm. Now, I think people at a certain level can maintain that rhythm, but it's extroverted feeling. A dummy with bad vibes, not necessarily even an FI type, again, we'll get to that, can walk in and affect the vibe, no matter what level you're on, because there is a pressure to deal with the person with bad vibes, even if, by all means, you should kick them to the curb and not care about them. If FE had a selectable setting, or some blinders, FI types or bad vibes people would be in for some deep shit. I don't think people realize how deeply their existences hinge on other people's acceptance or at least toleration. Another shorter real-world example. I was friends with an ENTJ dude. There was an INFJ dude, a weedy little INFJ dude, who was socially making a fool of him and personally emasculating him in a pretty humiliating way. In a really humiliating way. All while forcing ENTJ to be friends with him, have him in his home. And right off the bat, upon my learning about it, I want to do something about it. And for me to do anything, I need as much information as possible, plus hands-on experience if possible. So I start speaking with INFJ dude while ENTJ dude is there, and INFJ dude and I get right into a positive vibes rhythm. And it wasn't even inorganic. And the INFJ's vibes were fascinating. He came off like a dude who wasn't a bad person, but was used to getting pushed around by a certain sort of person, and found himself in a position to make those sorts of people dance around on the palm of his hand. So he did it. Why wouldn't he? Incidents, not malevolence. I mean, there was some malevolence there, because when you're dealing with people that stupid and forceful, you can't blame him for developing a degree of malevolence, but nothing that couldn't be sorted out. And then, the second time we're speaking and I'm information gathering a bit harder, ENTJ says something to the effect of, "You guys sure seem friendly," in this fucking pouty, "you're supposed to be helping me, not him," way. And that one line fucks up the entire rhythm. And all it takes is that one thing. INFJ comes to a conclusion. I don't know if it's the right conclusion. I'll never know if it's the right conclusion, because now he's closed off. And I can't gather the information I need to develop a solution positive for everyone. Right? The whole reason INFJ dude is doing what he's doing is because he wants attention from women. Right? And he's talented, not bad looking, and actually pretty smooth. There are ways for him to get what he wants without causing the relationship havoc with ENTJ he's causing. But now that's never going to happen. All because ENTJ was too ass-mad and pouty to vibe, or at least keep his mouth shut. You'll notice in friend groups, or any sort of group dynamic going on long enough, the FE types are going to bind together behind the scenes. That's because we can be brutal to each other for fun and for effect. We can pull out the painful innards of each other and throw out the bad bits for fun while getting things done. I know FI types, some of them sometimes can rib like that, and they can fit themselves into mutual elevation processes, but it is so rare. When they pull out something painful in others, they do it with malice, and when they get hurt, they get mad and offended. And nothing is more detrimental to a vibe and a mutual elevation process than indignation. This leads us to ITPs and how they don't always fit into these mutual elevation processes. Now, for specificity, based on my observations, INTPs, males and females, are the worst about fucking up the vibe. Male ISTPs tend to have the least issues with fucking up the vibe because they aren't going to get in your face. Or get in your face to fuck up the vibe. They aren't going to enter a vibe and fuck it up usually. Rather, they won't be receptive to vibes. They will be harshly rejective of vibes if they do decide they're going to fuck up the vibe. Female ISTPs are different. The ones who are not cool are really not cool. They'll walk in with chips on their shoulders and stomp all over the vibe, the way an FI type would, but the results are their resentment. Right, they're still FE types. They are still sensitive to the vibes. So when people respond negatively to their fucking up the vibes, they respond doubly negatively. And that doesn't go for all of them, but it happens often enough I need to mention it. It's like they're mad a vibe is existing at all. Now, INTPs, males and females, do sort of the same thing, but for different reasons. Chess, strategies, multiple steps ahead. Most INTPs operate at one step ahead. They see a vibe is happening and they get aggravated because the vibe isn't aligned with what they think. And they operate under the assumption what they think is more important than what the vibe might accomplish. So they inject themselves into the situation and say vibes at all are stupid and people should be thinking what they're thinking. For instance, Terry A. Davis, a mentally ill but genius programmer. A bunch of people are standing around watching him ramble about glow-in-the-darks. An INTP will step in and say Terry is crazy, because that seems most obvious to them, and they do not pick up on the vibe of the group, which, depending on the group, could be anything. From let's figure out what he's talking about, to let's figure out why this happened, to let's have some fun. The INTP thinks, step one, level one, what they think is more important than what the group, what the vibe might accomplish, and they're frustrated that a vibe is happening at all. And as with the select female ISTPs I mentioned, because the INTPs are FE types, they don't take the group's backlash well. Whether the group responds with no shit or who cares, it doesn't matter. The INTP is aggravated other people aren't thinking what they're thinking, and they're mad when their ideas get rejected. Their FE is low enough not to know how to enter the group and affect it the way they want, or to close their mouths, and I think SE has a part to play with this, because you don't see STPs inject themselves that way into groups or into vibes nearly as often. I use the Terry example because it's one I've seen enough times, but it goes with INTPs for any sort of vibe, any sort of group. What they think is more important, and they feel the need to inject themselves into that group the way an INFP would, yet they're going to stick around and stay mad because they're, at the end of the day, they're FE types. And again, this doesn't apply to all INTPs, but it applies to enough of them. They're so focused on their shit, they don't have sense enough to keep their mouths closed and observe. Or the fluidity to enter a vibe, a group, or a conversation as a member, even if they do want to affect the group, which I think most TI DOMs are going to feel inclined to want to, no matter what. But to summarize, FE is not necessarily social harmony. FE is awareness of vibes, and depending on where FE is in your stack, a sort of pressure to negotiate them. Whether that is fitting in, influencing, or fighting. Then, mutual elevation. Step 1, are we good? Step 2, what do we want to figure out, and how are we going to figure it out? And step 3, how can we shit-talk each other into flawlessness? With trust and positive vibes, FE and TI are the greatest swords and chisels in the human arsenal. And one last thing, forgot to mention, ISFJs. If you are an NTP or an SFJ, which in typology is an alpha quadrant type, with social troubles, look at ISFJs and study under the good ones. Their vibes and social Frankenstein controls are immaculate. I am looking forward to doing a video on them once I have enough information, but if you don't want to wait, study under them now. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. This one was fun. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. If you are an FI type, can you notice FE vibes happening? If you can, what is your response to them? How do you react to them? I am curious. And why do you feel inclined to fuck them up? I'd love to know. But thanks again for watching, everybody, really. We have a lot of fun on this channel, so much fun, in fact. You can plug it into the wall and listen to it while you're showering, because you are the king of your trailer. Nobody else is around to be bothered by your listening to the fun. And that's so much fun we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.